I want to highlight the two rival ways of looking at the Constitution and looking at the American system, one by the left and the other by the right. Now, the left, in summary, uses a democratic system, small d, democratic system, and the right is attached mostly, and I say mostly because oddly enough, we'll see that there are elements of the right that don't accept this, a Republican system. And the difference can be highlighted in this way. And here I'm relying on a very important book by Randy Barnett, a professor of constitutional law at Georgetown. The book is called Our Republican Constitution. And this is what Barnett argues. He says, look, the great divide in America is between those who believe that rights come first and then comes government. So that's the Republican way. We are individuals and our rights come first, and the government is put into place to secure our rights. That's the Republican understanding of government and of the Constitution. And the other way, which is the way of the left, of the Democrats, of the progressives, is first comes government and then come rights. Now, how is it possible for government to come first? Well, it's possible because the majority, by exercising its democratic prerogative, elects the government, and the government confers rights on you. So the majority decides, okay, we're going to let these people have this, and we're going to let these people have that. So rights flow out of the government. You can see that although these approaches both use much of the same language, they talk about majorities and minorities and rights. Nevertheless, it is a very different way of looking at it. So the advocates of a democratic constitution, this is the left, they view we the people collectively. We the people as sort of a single group. So once you have a majority, the majority then assumes the right to be the spokesman of all the people. And then what the majority says kind of goes. And yeah, there may be some narrow carve-outs for individual rights, but by and large, what the left says is that the presumption should be that the majority should be able to have its way. The other approach, the Republican approach, is very Lockean. And by Lockean, I'm referring to the philosopher John Locke. It's the idea that we come into the world as individuals. We are citizens in our individual capacity. Our rights are individual rights. Think, for example, about the right of free speech. You have that right as an individual. It's not a collective right. Your right to conscience is an individual right. Your right to vote is an individual right. It might result ultimately in a sort of joint decision about whom the people want to put at the head of government, but each individual casts an individual vote separately. Equal rights under the law means I have the right to be treated as an individual the same as every other individual in a similar or identical situation. The democratic approach is, as Professor Barnett puts it, Hobbesian, by which I mean it is an exercise of raw power. The majority is by definition the many, and the many are by definition more and therefore stronger than the few. And so for Hobbes, politics is ultimately an extension of power, and since the majority have the power, the majority are the ones who make the decision. But for Locke, it's not ultimately and solely a matter of power. For Locke, it's a matter that we have, by virtue of being human, certain natural and inalienable or unalienable rights. Now, what does the word unalienable mean? Well, it means that these are rights that cannot be surrendered. And this is a very shocking notion because it means that you can't give up a right even if you want to. Now, there are many aspects of our humanity that we can give up through consent. We marry by consent, we enter into contracts by consent, we take jobs by consent, we sell our labor by consent. So, for example, you can go to somebody and say, well, listen, I'll work for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, and you pay me so-and-so. I'm giving up the right to my labor, at least for that duration, and I'm paid a fixed sum. So my labor is alienable, which means I can sell it. I have property that's alienable. I can sell my house. I can sell my car. But I can't sell my right to free speech. I cannot sell myself into slavery. And so even though I can sell my labor, I cannot tell somebody else, listen, for $1,000 or for $1 million, you can now own me as a person. There's no such thing as voluntary slavery. So all of this is a way of saying that there is a certain kind of sacrosanct quality to rights, and these rights are possessed by individuals prior to having any kind of a government. Now, in the next segment, I'm going to focus on Obamacare. I'm going to follow Professor Barnett's analysis, and I want to show not merely that Obamacare represents the affirmation of Obamacare by the court, represents a triumph of the left, a triumph of the democratic as opposed to the Republican way of understanding government. But I want to show that, ironically, Chief Justice Roberts and his affirmation of Obamacare shows that there are people on the right, on our side, who nevertheless accept the left's, quote, democratic or majoritarian understanding of the government. And this is erroneous, and this needs to be changed. Debbie and I had a New Year's resolution to lose weight, and thankfully PhD Weight Loss came to the rescue. Debbie's already lost 24 pounds. I've lost 27, and we're now both on maintenance. The program is based on science and nutrition. No injections, no pills, no long hours in the gym, no severe calorie restriction, just good, sound, scientifically proven nutrition. It's so simple. They make it easy by providing 80% of your food at no additional cost. They tell you when and what to eat, and guess what? You can do this without ever being hungry. The founder, Dr. Ashley Lucas, has her PhD in chronic disease and sports nutrition. She's also a registered dietitian. She helps people lose weight and, most important, maintain that weight loss for life. If you're ready to take the step of losing weight like Debbie and I have, called PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition. Here's the number. Write it down. 864-644-1900. You can also find them online at myphdweightloss.com. The number again to call, 864-644-1900.